In the previous video, we had created our authorization implementation where we had a service account key.json, which basically has all of our credentials and authorizations, and use that to connect to our Firebase account, which is hosted by Google and a database as well. So let's run our application and first see that everything is working smoothly without showing up any errors for authorizing our application. So we have our application ready. So let's just do run CRUD runner, and that should initialize our Firebase application and also run our Springboot application. And hopefully nothing breaks here. So we have our Tomcat server up and running, and let's just quickly do a sanity check. No errors so far, and everything is being executed, and yep, looks great. Nothing broke. So yeah, let's talk about what we are going to do in this video. So we have our local application and it has been authorized to hit Firebase. Now we, for our CRUD application, first we need to do is have data which we need to create, update, or do some operations on. So first let's create our data and then we can do a bunch of things with that data. So go inside your package, new Java class, call it CRUD. So this is going to be a simple data which we can operate on. Let's have our setter and getters from Lombok so that it's easier to work with them. The next thing which we need are a bunch of um, attributes for our data. So here inside our data, we just have two fields. We have the name and the profession, and we have the document ID, right? So let's do that. So let's have all the three here. So we have private string document ID, we have private string name, and private, not private, we have private string profession. So this is basically the attributes which we have inside each document for our CRUD user schema inside our Firebase CRUD main database. So this is how we can access our object in a serializable manner, which gives us these three things whenever we want them. Now this is the data which we'll be working on, where we update, delete, and retrieve this particular in JSON format, data in JSON format. So what's next? Now we need to have a controller which basically talks or shoots out APIs, right? So let's have a CRUD controller. We'll be following the MVC architecture, the model view controller. So we have our controller, we have our view, which is basically JSON, and model, which is going to be Firebase, which is handling our database there. So inside our controller, what are we doing? So we are talking to a service which basically interacts with the Firebase database for us. So let's go ahead and first create that service as well. So we have CRUD service, and this service will basically contact Firebase and get all the data from it or send data to it, and it will be operated on using the CRUD controller. So let's first implement our CRUD controller. So we call it RS controller, and let's initialize our CRUD service application class first. So public CRUD service, and let's do an simple constructor here called so CRUD controller. Take CRUD service and let this inside this dot CRUD service equal to CRUD service. Okay, simple initialization of our CRUD service so that we can use all the methods and such. Next would be to have our controllers ready, right? So no beans found. So let's first actually create a bean for this. So let's go ahead and make it a service, which will indirectly make it a bean for us to use. And this should go away. If not, then okay, it's gone. Now let's create our API endpoints through which we are going to contact Firebase, right? So we have create, update, create, retrieve, update, delete, right? CRUD APIs. So let's add them sequentially. So post mapping, we're going to do a post to / create, and this will create our CRUD data. It will return the CRUD data created, or we'll just say it returns a string for now that our data has been created. And we can see the data being created on the dashboard, and it will have a request body, and this body is going to be CRUD in the CRUD object form, and this throws a bunch of stuff. So it throws interrupted exception and also throws execution exception. So this is for Firebase, so we'll get into that in a minute. And inside this, all we need to do is return CRUD service dot create CRUD, which we are going to make right now. So this is not existing inside the service class, but we will be making this in a minute. Let's do the same for the other endpoints. So we have create, we need retrieve. So this is going to be get mapping, not twice. So we have get mapping, and we do get, and we also have the name. So that's going to be a request parameter. So instead of create, we can do get CRUD, and instead of request body, we do request param, and this is going to give out a CRUD object. So get CRUD, and this is going to be string and the name of our application, basically, or document ID is what I would say better. Document ID, and we pass it on to this, and we get our get endpoint done. Let's create the other endpoints. So now the next thing which we have to do is create the update. So create retrieve is done. Next is a put mapping. So let's quickly write that as well. So we have put mapping, and this will update. So let's do update. Again, return a string because you want to see this happening inside the dashboard. Update CRUD, and again we want this little thing inside and not the document ID. So this will become CRUD. Yep, CRUD update is also done, and last but not the least is delete. So let's have our delete up and ready for it to use. So delete delete. Yep, everything looks good. We need to delete by document ID, so let's do that. And this is going to be not delete, it's going to be delete, and we're deleting by document ID. Okay, awesome. We have all the REST controller endpoints that we need to talk to our CRUD service. And next, let's create all these services or the method definitions first before we move on. So first is going to be public string create CRUD, which takes in CRUD and does a bunch of stuff, right? It basically returns, for now it returns an empty string, but it will return something later on. Next, we want the same for delete and update as well. So let's do update first. So update, and okay, so what's the problem here? Request is CRUD, right? So already defined. Okay, my bad. This is going to be delete CRUD, and this should make sure all the problems go away. And yep, almost looks like it. Everything looks good. Delete takes a string, so my bad. Yep, and the last is going to be get. So we do get, and this is going to be string, not in German, document ID, and we are good to go. So now we have our function definitions, what they do. Pretty straightforward, they don't do much for now. It's just simple enough to get it working. and we have our CRUD controller ready as well. So hopefully the errors go away. Yep, and they did go away. So yeah, we have our REST controller ready. Usually I do a simple unit test to check whether a controller is running or not. So the way I do that is basically have a test endpoint which does it for me. So let me just show it to you right now. So here I have a /test endpoint which basically gives me that the test endpoint is working and gives me that my application is sane. So let's actually see what's happening inside /test so that we make sure that our application is up and running. So let's run our application, and hopefully we will have a simple app ready without any hassle. So our server is running. Once it's done, we can then use anything to run our application. Basically just do a /get, right? So it is on port 8080. So let's do it here. So let's do local 8080/test, right? And we get the endpoint is working, so that's good to know. We have our application up and running. So in the next video we will actually implement the main logic of our application, where we actually talk to our Firebase database and then we create our endpoints. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.